Hi everyone, my name is Roland and I am the team lead at Muwado, Africa's storytelling platform. So if you haven't heard of Muwado, we are an online platform, muwado.com, muwado.com. And we are a community of about 2,000 plus African storytellers that are just enjoying each other's stories and connecting through, our experiences and our shared relatable stories. So Muwado is also very big on trying to monetize these stories so that the creatives who are telling these stories can make a living, make some income of the story. So that's a very big component of our agenda and our mission. So to further this, we organized the Art of Commercial Storytelling Webinars to help the members on our platform, first of all, get a refresher on the basics of storytelling, be it fiction or non-fiction, or even audio storytelling, but also to just introduce them and take them on a deeper dive on digital storytelling, which is what we practice because we're based online. But lastly, we also wanted to just shine a light on the commercial aspect of storytelling for those who are serious and who want to make some income of this talent that they've been given. So that's the purpose of these webinars, and we look forward to seeing you in as many of them as we can. And at this juncture, I'll pass on to the facilitator to begin. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so very much, Roland and Muwado, the team at Muwado, for inviting me to, you call it a training. I want to call it a conversation, a chat. So I hope it can be a chat at the end of the day, not as of now, a training. Jacob Katumusiime is my name. I also claim to be a writer, like many of us here. I'm a teacher, formerly or previously of language and literature. Presently, I think I am more inclined to political and cultural studies scholarship. So this is what I teach. This past semester, I was teaching the course Theories of Culture and Society at the Mackay Institute of Social Research. However, writing for me is a passion. So when I was contacted by Roland, I thought it was a call back home. So that's why I'm here. I've written before, and every time there's a haunting to want to write more, just that now I'm in a different kind of world of writing, more focused in academic research and so on, but writing is home and I shall return. You shall forgive me the different noises that shall come through because as you can imagine, this is not my home. This is a hotel. So it's you shall once in a while see maybe or hear or get distractions. You shall pardon me for those, but they shall be controlled or contained regardless. So it's truly a humbling privilege. It's humbling an opportunity for me to speak to you about stories and creative storytelling. It's an honor for me, especially because I believe I've looked at your bios, all of you, and I believe you have much more to tell me about storytelling than, I have to teach you or train you about the trade. And especially, like I've just said a few minutes ago, I've in recent times taken refuge in academic writing. So because of that, partly I am always struggling to return to creative writing, but creative writing is home. And this is not to say that academic writing is not creative, no, but to emphasize that a refugee camp can never be a home proper. You always want to return to where you came from. So my background is in literature, English, writing. My last year course project was a creative writing project, the best for that year. So really, it is home. So I'm really grateful. I've been invited back home, perhaps to share memories of this land called creative writing, of this valley called creative writing. And I come back home when many things have changed. On the one hand, for example, I see that you have all been branded African digital creatives. So this storytelling training is for African digital creatives. And I've asked myself, what does this mean? And at one moment I was like, I think this is a cocktail of storytellers. Yes, because look, while most of you are writers, for example, I can see that we also have TikTokers, radio hosts, YouTubers, Instagrammers, and procrastinators, I should add, because there are those who in their bios are saying, I have not interacted with writing before, but I want to start. I've been thinking about it. So it's a cocktail of storytellers. And I've wondered, these different bios, is this what defines the African digital creatives? Is it what defines African digital creatives? And then, wondering, what does it mean to be an African digital creative, or what are African digital creatives? So I've wanted to think that the term is used more concretely to refer to a community which politically identifies as African, a community that utilizes online technologies to tell stories, and a community which at the same time is very innovative in its craft. And indeed, when you look at the different writings, stories, ways of telling them that come from the continent, even the African diaspora, you're amazed at actually how a very elastic language can be, at how very elastic human imagination can be. Years back, there are things that could not be imaginable in their craft of storytelling. Today, you see many such. So I wanted to think of the African digital creative as such, a community that politically identifies as African, a community that utilizes online technologies to tell stories, a community which at the same time, like I said, is very innovative in its craft. And so I've asked myself, in regard to this definition of the African digital creative, how do we pose the question of fundamentals of storytelling? Because look, the possibility that today we have a community of storytellers who, when they think about themselves, they give themselves a different name, African digital creatives. That possibility is a warning on the search for fundamentals of storytelling. Because if there is the idea that there is a difference between the storyteller of the 1960s, of the 1970s, of the 1950s, of the immediate post-independence state and the storyteller of our time of today, then that possibility, that reality warns us against the attempt to talk about fundamentals of storytelling. So I am convinced that there are no universal fundamentals of storytelling. I think it is the context of the storyteller that fashions the fundamentals for them. To the extent that if you are a war child, the way you tell your story is going to be different from the way a child who has grown up in the diaspora is going to tell their story. And a Ugandan in the diaspora is going to tell their story. The fantasies, the hopes, the dreams, the styles, the fundamentals will be defined by the context most times. Sometimes you read a story and you see urgency in the story because of the context within which the narrator is placing the individuals in the story. Sometimes you read a story and it's so slow. Sometimes you read a story and it's philosophical. So you can see that there are no universal fundamentals. There are no universal fundamentals. There are relatable things because we grow up in the same context, but there are no universal fundamentals. And I'll come back to this so much. And so, look, for example, if you're looking for fundamentals, let me remind us, for the benefit of those who are not yet born, then a story of a time in Uganda where storytellers went silent, went mute. Yeah. It was 2021. We were gearing up for a presidential election. And Facebook, the platform, had become one of the most formidable platforms of dissent for the Ugandans. You could go to Facebook and write these very long posts. Like for the first time in the history of harassing Ugandans, the state found its echo on Facebook, to the extent that some members of the ruling government, their Facebook accounts were closed by Facebook because they were reported by the Ugandans and they were closed. And so the NRM government was beginning to lose hold of this particular platform. It was beginning to stagger. It had been thoroughly bullied in what those who like to speak in tongues would call giving it a taste of its own medicine. And what followed in the days after this moment when the NRM government felt it had no control of Facebook, the President Yoweri Museveni, ordered for the closure of Facebook. So access to Facebook was shut down. Look, with the many platforms through which we could have expressed ourselves, we were looking for VPN because we were feeling it's only from Facebook that we can write, tell our stories well. Everyone was looking for VPN. Some of us rushed to Twitter and opened Twitter accounts. And look, while the interfaces of the two platforms shared a few things, some of the most influential Facebookers of the time, I can assure you, they are yet to find a remarkable footing on what is now called X, When they came, it was Twitter. Now it's even X. So they found that the fundamentals are dynamic. This is what it shows. The fundamentals change with the kind of story you want to tell, the style, the style you want to tell, through which you want to tell it, even the platform you want to use to tell this story. So the fundamentals are always changing. So now we have managed to destabilize the very reason as to why we are here, this search for fundamentals of storytelling. What happens? Do we close this? Do we close it? I don't think we should turn to wordlessness, because the fundamentals of storytelling are dynamic and they cannot be fixed. We cannot freeze them and say, if you have this, you're good to go. You are going to win awards. No. I believe there is a way out. And what is the way out? So I want to invite you to a question that would help benefit our conversation today. And the question is this: if we were to be asked, what is storytelling to us? What would our answers be? Yeah? What is storytelling to us? Perhaps some could help me post their answers to that question. So, is storytelling a vocation for you? Is it a profession? When I think about myself, for example, and claim I'm a writer, is writing a vocation, or is it a profession? Something I studied and do? Or it's something that that I have been groomed in. It might not be inborn, but you're raised in it. You're groomed in it. And so what is that for you? So I'm quite certain really, that many of us will want to claim that it's both a vocation, it's also a profession. Okay. And it's a vocation because we feel passionate about it, that we have logged in. It's a work day. Some are in offices and logged in. So it's a passion. And for some, it's a profession also because either we studied it or we are earning from it. But when you set out to tell a story, for what purpose do you do it? And someone has even complicated it further to say, storytelling for me is an art. Wow. So is art a style of storytelling, or is art, what is art? Because someone has said storytelling for them is an art. So how do we then decomplicate it further? For some people out there, they will say that art is a vocation for them, and others will say art is a profession. So we find ourselves still in that same dilemma we put across. Is storytelling a profession or a vocation? So you can answer. I have seen that they have helped put up a poll. We can see the person who put up a poll is unfair. You could have put it's both, even both. Can even put none. So we are very sure. So so indeed, what is this? And as we answer this question, I want us to reflect more on the question of, when you set out to tell a story, for what purpose do you do it? Is it for finding meaning out of the world we have inherited? Or is it for mining money out of this world? Yeah. Is it for the money? Is it for meaning making? What happens to our storytelling in case it cannot produce money? Yeah. What happens to our storytelling in case, for those who are married in relationships, what happens to our storytelling in case your partner asks how much it brings to the table? What happens to the storytelling? So this question is a question on, what are the things that threaten your storytelling? And how willing are you to either, give in to the pressures, to the threats, or how willing are you to still pursue this storytelling? I listen to different podcasts, and there is a particular podcast by a lady called Rachel Mwine. So I forget the name of that. It's a YouTube kind. It's called, so she has two, I think. There's the Good Wife podcast. There's another podcast. What is the other podcast? Forget the other podcast she uses. I forget the podcast, but what happens is that Rachel Mine says that she wanted to do this podcast when she finally begins. She said she opened the YouTube page 5 years back, 5 years, and did other things, did a master's, I think, or something like that, a course. Then was, of course, doing her journalism stuff. Then finally, still this haunting, this thing kept on asking to be attended to. And she finally said, let me attend to it. And now, of course, opened up the YouTube channel, and started posting, bought machines, podcast, those technologies, and started doing the podcast 5 years after. And I was thinking about how many stories die in those years. If you are a storyteller and you have to wait 5 years to do something, to tell a story, people tell us they've written books for 10 years plus. They've stayed with books for many years. My professor, Professor Mahmoud Mamdani, is finishing a book, has finished, is about to publish a book on Uganda. And this is a book that is like 40 years of age. And I'm thinking, how many people can have this, patience to wait for the story to mature, or to respond to the call? Yeah. So when your storytelling is threatened by the pressures of life, what happens to your storytelling? Because look, friends, this is the major challenge facing African digital creatives. We operate in a world that requires us to balance our creative storytelling abilities and money making. We have to bring something to the table. So we have to earn, we have to eat, we have to take children to school, we have to do many things that require money. And storytelling is a jealousy trait. And we have to balance this. So in that existential crisis, often the casualty is the stories we are going to tell. torn between the choice of having to take up a job and tell a story and go do your storytelling, you take up a job unless the job is of storytelling itself. I remember Jennifer Makumbi, one of Uganda's most celebrated authors, writers, storytellers. She says she had to give up her university job. Who gives up a university job in Europe to go write stories, my dear friends? How many of us would afford to do that? How many of us who are secondary school teachers, for example, would give up their job to go tell stories? Of course, we will say Makumbi had made a name already and so on and so forth. But even the possibility that someone can do that, for me, is, I can't imagine. Like, I've struggled ever since I finished my PhD. I've struggled. Some have said, maybe you could do a PhD in now creative writing or do a PhD in literature, language, and I'm like, 2 PhDs, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. The skills I have are enough. I can do both. So what I did, you know, that there's something that you never lose. In the bio they sent you, they said that that my PhD won the Rahman Bello for the best PhD award, but best PhD thesis in African diaspora studies. Partly, it was this art of storytelling that helped, I think, the grace of God above, that art, because my work was on Joseph Chibwetere. Joseph Chibwetere had a movement, was leading a movement called the Movement for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments of God. And this movement in 2000, it ended in 2000 with the perishing of its members through acts of what I call mass murder suicide, because I believe the leaders of the movement killed the members and then committed suicide in the same act. They burnt up the people. The people were not informed prior, so that was murder, mass murder. But for them, this was suicide on their part. So I call it a mass murder suicide. But one of the things I did was to say, I want my chapters. For those who know academic writing, you have to do introduction, methodology, what, like chapters follow each other in a very mechanical way, very mechanical. So what I did was to say, I want from my very first chapter to the last chapter to be a story. So you do not meet, for example, the year 1989 in the first chapter. No, you will meet it in the second chapter. I tried to make sure I studied this movement from the beginning and even move further beyond that to the pre-colonial times, how religion was practiced in Ankole and so on and so forth. So I wrote the PhD in a chronological manner. I wanted to tell a story. And of course, there was, tension and so on. But what it meant is that I had to sacrifice certain things out of the to be royal to that chronological storytelling in a very academic space. You have to sacrifice certain things, of course. But at least I was very committed to that. And that's what I achieved. That when I said, I want someone who reads my PhD thesis to feel like they are reading a novel. And everyone who read it said that. Even the award, they said that I had brought a new style of historiography, telling history, academic history kind, in a very chronological manner. So I was intentional about it. So, but you see, I was being paid to do that. As a PhD student, you're paid. If I wasn't being paid, I could not have that patience and time. I just want to write this PhD and it is gone, this thing, and it gets off. So how many of us are willing really to commit to something that is not that bringing in the finances, to make sure you tell the story that needs to be told? Yeah. How do you balance creative storytelling and money making? So, so we have, in the end, faced with this crisis, we have had many stories not told because the custodians are busy looking for money or busy procrastinating. One of us said they are procrastinators Pro Max. If they were an Apple phone, they would be Pro Max. So, and we have also had many bad stories because the custodians of those stories want to make money out of them. They are in a market. They are selling the stories. So we have many bad stories. Someone just wants to finish a book and get it off to print. Just, there's no patience at all. Look, I never stop to bemoan the collapse of Uganda's comedy industry, for example. So look, and you forgive me here, but I have no kind words for those jokers, because ever since they found out that the profane, the tribalistic amuses Ugandans, those who call themselves comedians have committed themselves to establishing a whole industry of vulgarity. So there's vulgarity on sale. We pay for it and laugh at it, you know? And because they want to make money, they know that saying tribalistic things about the Basoga, about the Banyankole and their arrogance will make money. So you find comics, repeated comics all the time, things that should irritate us, but we laugh at them. And so because of money, sometimes we have sold the soul of this trade. But let me ask us one other question. How would we want our storytelling to be remembered? And this is a question that should haunt us. How would we want our storytelling to be remembered? So whenever we think of selling the souls of our stories, this question, I pray, should haunt us. Because creative storytelling is under attack. The money economy threatens its potence at every level. In fact, in recent times, we've seen many of us turning into writers for money. We have sanitized that as influencers. Yeah. So the word influencer has joined the category of professions like teacher or police officer. So to be an influencer is a job. And it is interesting. The irony, however, is that those who are likely making more money out of influencing are the ones who have not even set out to be influencers, to be influencing anything. It is those who have dedicated themselves to making meaning out of the world we live in. And this I challenge you over. Let's think of storytelling as meaning making meaning out of the world we have inherited. Look, it is those who have committed, dedicated themselves to making this world a better place, most times, that have become, the best, the most, the foremost, because they are not making money. I don't want to put them in that category. But if they were to make money, this is what I'm trying to say. If they were to make money out of their content, look, a person like Spire Sentongo, if he was to make money out of his content, how much money would he collect? You know? It is for those whom storytelling is first a vocation. He is every day working to tell a story of someone who is, unprivileged, who is disadvantaged, and he has a lot of following for it. And I don't want to be misunderstood. Look, in the beginning, when influencing became a thing, it seemed that those who had a large following, for example, on Twitter, now what we call X, were making money. It was so lucrative that some individuals sold their accounts to big businesses to market their products. So someone with a large following sells their account to one big company, manufacturing company, or to influence for that company. But over time, and at first it made money for them, but over time, it is those that have found purpose for their accounts that have retained relevancy in Uganda, I can assure you. Follow those people who are influencers and they are always, today they post this product, tomorrow they post another product. Tomorrow it's a cosmetic product, the other is a beverage. They are no longer followed. So over time, we see indeed that it's those that have found purpose for their accounts that have retained relevance. And this follows up on the question I asked, for what would you want your storytelling to be remembered? So on X, for example, I see many influencers with a large following, but that following does not follow the posts. It's funny, you have 12,000 followers and you make a post and not even 5 likes. Shame. The audience is fatigued. The audience is fatigued by the unconnected marketing posts of these storytellers. In simple terms, the audience is fatigued because through their likes, retweets, you're making money. You're mining them. You're exploiting your audience. So the question comes back down to, why are we storytellers? If we can answer this question, the stories we hold within us shall spring forth, I can assure you. And in an unfortunate turn of events, we might have to hold our peace if we ask this question and answer it. So for you to tell a story that captivates us, you have to do more than the mechanics, more than the fundamentals. Look, we who have been born in the post-colonial moment have, in a way, grown up in similar circumstances. They may not be the same circumstances, contexts, but they are similar. This means that if we were to tell our stories, there is something relatable that would come out of those stories. Our stories would be relatable. So the question becomes, for you who has decided to tell our shared story, how are you telling our shared story in a way that I would not have told it myself, in a way that I would love to read, in a way that I would love to pay for to read? Why would I pay to read a story I would have told? So I think this is a question Roland set up for me, a trap for me. It's a trap that I found a way out in a little book I read a few years back. It's a compilation of letters. It is written by a gentleman called Teju Cole. Many perhaps know Teju Cole. So for those who, after hearing what I have said, this rambling, for those who are still insisting that you want to be storytellers, those who are confident that this valley called storytelling is a vocation, is an art, it's not just a profession, or it's both, I am confident that we shall find some insightful answers in this little text. And while the letters in that little text is 40-page, I recommend it to everyone. I've shared it with Roland. I hope he can share it with everyone. So while the letters are, are addressed to writers, and of course, even most of us are saying this, we are writers, I believe that it shall aid even the other creatives listening in, the YouTuber, the TikToker, the Instagrammer, and the rest. And I want us to go through it together, and I will keep quiet. So the next 20 minutes, I would want to have someone help in some, because I've talked a lot, I might need some water or rescue. So I would want someone to help read for us this. So this is how Roland, I don't know if I can share my screen. So if I share my screen, is it something that people think can help? Because I feel like reading it the way it's being posted might not be the best way. Can I share my screen? Can someone say they are seeing the screen and can hear me? I'm being told only the co-host and the host see the screen. Could you help the people access the screen, please? Someone there? Hello?
Jacob, I believe they can see the screen. Can proceed.
They can see the. Okay, great. So can I have volunteers to read for me? This book is called 8 Letters to a Young Writer, Teju Cole. Roland will help share it with the rest. So let me just read the preface, and people can volunteer to read for me paragraphs of that first letter. It's just 4 or 3 pages. It's short, so we can go through it together. So Teju Cole writes and says, 8 Letters to a Young Writer evolved as a fictional exercise addressed to an imaginary young Nigerian writer. I thought it might be interesting to take the genre of letters to a young writer and have it be written by someone who is himself a young writer. Over the course of the series, and with the encouragement of my editor, Molara Wood, I tried to move from discussions of simple writing precepts to more complex things like voice and calling. And this is why you need to read this, because it's not just about the writing, it's also about voice and the idea of calling, vocation, you know. It was wonderful to write these letters for a general newspaper audience. And it was equally wonderful to receive letters from young Nigerian writers. And here you shall put your country: Ugandan, Zambian, Mozambican, Rwandan, Kenyan, and so on, in response to them. The one-sided correspondence became a richer and truer thing. I am happy to make those pieces available again now as a single downloadable PDF file. I hope they can stand as a small act of solidarity with writers of all ages in Nigeria and elsewhere. So we are the elsewhere in here referred. So someone could read for us the first 2 paragraphs, please. Volunteer, please. Or Roland, you could, what is it called? You could help us. So writers who don't want to read, how do we call you? Or they can't see the screen.
Guys, sorry about that. Let me know. I've changed the setting. Are you able to see the screen now? Jacob, try sharing again. Start sharing again.
I stop sharing perhaps and try sharing again.
Okay, I think they can see it now.
Can you see it now?
And we have our first volunteer, Chipale.
Yeah, Chipale. Right. Great, thank you. You could read the first paragraphs for us, and well, don't rush through them so that everyone can see, but still they will share the document with you. Great, we can go.
Chipale, I am going to unmute you and then you can read. Then we shall go to Unity next and so on and so forth. So give me a second. Let me unmute Chipale. You can say hello and introduce yourself and then read the first.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chipale. I'm from Zambia, and this is such an interesting place to be in. Yeah. So it reads, Dear friend, let me begin with a confession. I am not qualified to give you advice. For a start, I'm a young writer myself, hardly older than you, or perhaps you are even older than I am. I also recognize, as you surely recognize as well, that there are few things more resistant to tutoring than the creative arts. Most importantly, I know so little of your specific situation that in giving you any counsel, I have to restrict myself to generalities. But still, I am always trying to learn more about this writerly craft of ours, and that same instinct is at work in all writers, old and young. So you will forgive me what follows, and perhaps in these paragraphs find 1 or 2 things that will be helpful to you. You mentioned in your letter that you are determined to write some stories. This is good news. In finding the time and space to do your writing, you will come up with something tangible. It is good to set it down. Whatever you come up with, whatever it merits, will be of more worth than even the most Shakespearean of unwritten books. There are perhaps 100 different things, but let me limit myself to 8 for now. Take them not as rules, but as suggestions, as reminders about things that I myself wish I had known sooner.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So what are the 8 things? So we can have one read one. So we need now 8. The first, someone to go read the first.
All right, next we're going to have Unity. Unity is going to read the first one. Unity, give me a second. Let me unmute you. Okay, go for it.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Unity and I'm from Namibia. The first has to do with the texture of your writing itself. Keep it simple. George Orwell's advice, repeated numerous times, is worth bringing out again. Never use a big word where a small one will do. There are many who use big words to mask the poverty of their ideas. A straightforward vocabulary, using mostly ordinary words, spiced every now and again with an unusual one, persuades the reader that you're in control of your language. Use simple words fortified by a few bigger ones, and along with this variation, vary too the rhythm of your sentences. Most of them should be short, but the occasional long one will give a musical and pleasing cadence to your writing.
Thank you. The second suggestion?
We'll have Jennifer next. Jennifer, let me unmute you and then you read the second.
Hello. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm Jennifer Elkett. So my second suggestion is that you remove all the cliches from your writing. Spare not a single one. The cliche is an element of hard thinking, and writers should be solitary animals. Phrases that have been used to the point of becoming meaningless have no place in your stories. Money doesn't grow on trees. Not my cup of tea. Everything happens for a reason. Mildewed language of this kind is a waste of the reader's time. 3. Should I continue to 3?
Another one now. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
And who?
Yes, hello, my name is Aneunu. I am from Zimbabwe. So I will read. 3, avoid adverbs. Let the nouns, adjectives, and verbs carry the action of the story. He smiled is much stronger than he smiled wickedly. If the character is wicked, let the story show that. When you are editing, interrogate each adverb and eject any that doesn't have a good reason to be there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
The
Consulate.
All right, I'm Consolate. I'm from Uganda. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
4, when reporting speech, it is enough to say, she said, or he said. You must leave, he quoted, she muttered, I shouted, and other phrases to writers of genre fiction. These extra verbs add nothing to a narrative and only suggest to the reader that you don't have full confidence in your art. These first 4 suggestions point in the same direction. Aim for a transparent style so that the story you're telling is that much more forceful.
Great. Thank you. 5.
Read 5.
Hello. Can I read?
Yes,
Sure,
yes.
sure, go ahead.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Hello. 5, read more than you write. In expressing the ambition to be a writer, you are committing yourself to the community of other writers. John Berger once wrote that a quack is a doctor who has failed to integrate his few insights into the general body of medical information. As a writer, whatever your insights might be, you have to connect them to what else has been done in literature. Don't be like those who worry so much about originality that they end up writing garbage. Instead, disciple yourself to great writers.
Have we lost her?
Hello?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Instead,
Don't be like those who worry so much about originality that they end up writing garbage. Instead, disciple yourself to great writers. Read Mann, Garcia, Cortez, Joyce, and learn at their feet. Your originality will mean nothing unless you can understand the originality of others. Read slowly, like someone studying the network of tunnels underneath a bank of vault in preparation for a haste. What can you steal from the technique of the masters? Understand what Joyce is doing with language in Dubliners. Immerse yourself in the slow talk arc of man's magic mountain, and then a little brushness helps. Ask yourself, what can you do even better than them?
great. Great. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Another one?
Hello, Moses here. I would like to read 6. I'm from Uganda.
Yes.
Oh, teleprompter things, it has gone back. Okay, it's now here. 6, rely on.
Oh, we've lost you, Moses.
Sorry. Okay, am I on now?
Yes.
Okay, 6, rely on observation. You can't fool the reader.
Again, we've lost you again.
It's unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm holding the laptop now, right close to my mouth.
Ah,
6, rely on observation. You can't fool the reader. I remember writing poems as a child about snowy peaks and picnics in meadows. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie recounts something similar of her own childhood. It must be all the Enid Blyton we both read. It is bogus to write only about mud huts and village streams if you've lived your whole life in Somolu or Bariga. Your environment is interesting for its own sake, and Sonolu is more interesting than most places. Can you perhaps do for your city what Joyce did for Dublin? I beg you observe, observe, observe. Eavesdrop while you're sitting in the hospital waiting room. Be ruthless in your use of you've seen and in your use of what you've seen and what you've experienced. Write about the one-armed guy selling rat poison. Sorry, I have to laugh. It's a common Kampala thing. Let me read that again. Write about the one-armed guy selling rat poison on the dam floor. Or what happened when the day what happened when the day your estranged aunt came to visit. To all those, add your imagination so that the line where invention ends and reality begins is undetectable. It's like a memoir is the highest praise anyone can give your work of fiction. And if anyone asks whether you really did put trace amounts of rat poison in your uncle's amala, simply smile and shrug. Begin your stories in observation, then let invention take over.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. 7.
If I
Can
may?
read? Okay, it's okay.
Oh, 7, be courageous. Nothing human should be far from you. Write about murder and exam cheats, about depression and borrowed money. Write about the senator who lives in constant fear that her thievery will be found out. Or the grandmother who wants to sleep with her son-in-law. What about the imam who realizes one Friday afternoon that he's become an atheist? What of the anti-gay activist who himself is secretly gay? Tell the story you need to tell. Remember that you are not writing for the moral improvement of your reader. Leave that to others. You are writing so that you and the reader can share a solidarity in the complications of the human condition.
Great. Thank you so very much. 8.
Uh,
8.
I'll take it. 8. Avoid writing narratives that have only a single meaning. When you write about the dishonest senator, write it less as a denunciation of corruption. That is boring. Everyone denounces corruption. Even the senator herself denounces corruption as she stuffs more money into her bag. So, in other words, write it more as a study of what it's like to be a thief and to live in fear of being found out. If you can persuasively evoke the brittleness, jumpiness, and false confidence of a thief, you will have succeeded. These, okay, that's the end of it. These are 8 ideas. I could give you another 8, but I must pause here. These suggestions, you should understand, will be of no value to you unless you have the inner fire to really follow writing wherever it leads you. If you have that fire already, and I believe you do, if you're ready to stay up late at night to do the work, if you're truly willing to shuttle between reality and the dream world like a courier, then you won't be discouraged when you hit the inevitable roadblocks. You will write not because you want to, but because you must.
There's a last paragraph there.
Consider this. Perhaps it will become apparent to you that you are indeed called to be a writer. Then accept that fate, bear its burden and its grandeur without asking for the reward, which might possibly come from without. Those are Richard's words. They should be yours too.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so very much. We can clap for those who read for us, please, if you are not very mean. There are emojis. And so, Roland, I don't think I have much to add on this, except to say writing is not a war. I don't want really to use this platform to speak about people's writings, but there are people who write and it's as if they're in competition to invent a new dictionary. And you're reading, this is a novel, my dear friend. So Tejuko says something that I want to just highlight. Why sometimes we write and are discouraged by the writing we make. So 8, he says, avoid writing narratives that have only a single meaning. Now, I can stop sharing here and just say something brief. When I was doing my creative writing classes, our professor said something that I've never forgotten. He said, and I want to conclude with this. He said that every writer worth the name is first a poet. That every writer worth the name is first a poet. So as I prepared to speak to you, this line came again. And I just wanted to say every storyteller worth the name is first a poet myself, so that I can qualify what I want to say. So I asked myself, what is it about the poet actually? And this that I found out resonates with what is Intejo calls point number 8, that your story should not have one meaning, one single meaning. And if you have done poetry or are a teacher of poetry, one of the things you should be aware of is how poetry revolves around metaphors. And metaphors have the ability to produce more than one meaning. Perhaps why the Bible remains one of the most read books, historical, one of those books that has led to the evolution of many religious movements, is partly because of the many metaphors that are subject to multiple interpretations that are in. So this pastor will read and interpret the Bible, that text, this way. This other pastor interprets it this way. Every person has a way of interpreting the text because it allows that. Sometimes our writing does not allow that. And actually, I like I said, I don't like the, sometimes when you ask yourself these questions, you end up finding yourself, you end up knowing I'm a writer, I am called to do this thing, and it gives you no rest until you have managed to write or to tell the story you want to tell. If you want to sing, you go to the studio. It doesn't matter whether your voice is not the best, you feel like you want to sing and you have to do it. So that's why I don't like the mechanics of this is what you do, the fundamentals, this is what you do. But for those still interested in the fundamentals, I have provided that text. Roland has shared it even in the chat. Download it, read it. It is very simple. It's just 40 pages, my dear friends. You will thank Roland for this session. Otherwise, thank you. I'll take any questions and I think we should be done. But thank you so very much for listening to me. And thank you, Roland, for this opportunity. I have nothing to add to Teji call. Just be simple. And when he says that person, I believe him, because I remember I used to write stories when I was young, a high school student. And one of the things my stories really were good stories. They were always the best, really. It's partly because I used to love short stories, because short stories create suspense. It was a Saturday morning, 10 a.m. The sun had just set itself above the skies. Just simple things like appealing. And like you said, the long ones will always come through. But like the short sentences have power to capture the mind, because we are people who like rumor mongering. Like, I'm sorry, really, but I have a feeling that human beings have the potential to be rumor mongers. Like, we like to know what happened next. So because of that, whoever gives us stories in bits is always going to capture our attention. There is, now I'm reminded, things I didn't prepare, but there is a Zimbabwean a writer, Damduzo Marechera. He has a text, I think the text is called House of Stone. When you read it, the urgency, the briefness of those, the brevity of those stories he gives pulls you to read the text to the end. You want to know. I don't know how, like, even his scenes that he gives you in that book, you are asking more. What more was in this? What more was here? Describe a scene, and everyone is asking themselves, what more can we see in this? That's why, for example, people who use the word snake in stories, for example, or whatever they are saying, you do not know whether it's a real snake. Even if it's a real snake, it's symbolic of betrayal. It's symbolic of being shrewd. Like, it brings multiple meanings. So do your stories, when read, bring those multiple meanings, even to you when you think through them. And then last, let me stop here. If you write a story and you don't feel like going back to it to read it, then no reader will want to go back to your story. This, you can test it on yourself. And the moment you start writing stories or just telling stories where you want to go back and read that story, or if it's a YouTube, you want to listen again to that conversation you had with your guests. The moment you feel you want to go back to that moment, you're hitting the skies. I think that's all I can say. Thank you.
Jacob, thank you very much. Please leave your camera on, because you are still going to be responding to people's questions. So we need to see your smile. But yeah, thank you for a very introspective presentation. And at this juncture, we invite the participants, if they have questions, to put their hand up, and then we shall invite them to ask the question. So please do not unmute unless you get an invite from the administrator. That is myself. Otherwise, it will be chaotic. So one at a time. Just raise your hand. For those who do not raise their hand, there in their menu for Zoom, there's an option for raising your hand. Jacob, I will field the first one as other people collect their thoughts. For me, as let me just contextualize what you've said with what the platform is about. So, we set out to be a platform for African stories, but what does it mean to be an African storyteller? Yeah, is one of the questions that we struggled with at the beginning, because when you're trying to think about what your editorial policy is going to be, then there's a lot of things to consider. And eventually, we decided that we'll do away with the editorial policy, and people will write what they feel. Because who are we to define what an African storyteller is? We're just, Ugandan, based in Uganda, but my experience is not going to be anything like what someone. We have Unity from Namibia, so Unity from Namibia's experience as an African is going to be drastically different from mine. So it's not anyone's decision to define what an African storyteller is. So I think thank you for the resource, but I guess my question really is around how do you, for example, I guess you can share your own personal experience. How have you come to define yourself as an African storyteller? And what are some of the thought experiments one can go through to help them get clarity on what that is for themselves?
Great. Thank you, Roland. Really appreciate. And really, like I said, I'm not against commercializing, because my book is coming out on Joseph Chiwetel and so on, and I expect you to pay to read it. So I'm not against commercializing really our art. No, not at all. I'm just that it shouldn't be the first thing that comes. If you remember, there is a story I published. Muwado, the platform, introduced a thing where when you write a story and someone loves it, they can give you some money. They can give you some dollars, some Ghana shillings. I remember I received notification of a story I had written. I think it was about the Ugandan, the Ugandan Christian Zionists. It was really an intervention on the Israel-Palestinian war. And someone gave me money, and I saw the notification in my mail, and you too let me know via, I think, WhatsApp or email, one of the two, that I have some money, I could just pick it or collect it. And in my heart, I was like, no, I don't need this money. Indeed, yeah, the piece was good, and I always go back to read it, actually. But I felt like I don't need the money, and for one major reason: people are dying. The Palestinian struggle is a struggle that should make everyone sad, really, because we are all candidates of the same. A day will come, and people will tell us, this is not your land. But I've always emphasized that we are all children of migration. All of us are children of migration. There is no people you will ask and they tell you their ancestors were born in that place. They'll tell you, oh, we came from this place. We came from this place. If today we East Africans said, let the Ngoni go back, we would find all of us Ngoni. So we are all children of migration. The years might differ. It might be 300-400 years, but we are all children of migration. So we are always moving. We are an itinerant humanity. We are always moving. So for me, it was about an intervention of Ugandan Christians, especially Christian Zionists, who are saying, kill the Arab, exterminate him, get him out of Israel. They forget even that there are some Arabs who are Jews. Not all Arabs are Muslim. So the fact that the purpose for which you tell the story should always come first is, for me, important. And so for me, it's, I think, a question I've always asked myself: for what reason am I telling the story I am telling? And what if you are a victim of rape, God forbid, if this is sad always, but we always are not short of those cases, and you want to tell the story, for what do you want to tell the story? He says, let your story have double meaning, Teju call. I can assure you that if it's about just to expose those who do it, it shall be applauded. But because those who do it also have the power to limit how much the story goes, it won't make it anywhere. But if it is to both tell the story of those about those who do it and those victims, how they overcome, how they perhaps forgive, or the different ways they take to heal from the trauma, you will not even think about the money because you feel like you need to heal some soul out there. Those who do it might never read, even if the book is published, might just burn the book. For those who are Ugandans, maybe you might not know the publishing industry. You write a book, it goes to fountain, it can be published. The state will buy the book, all the copies. It won't even look for you, to just buy all the copies of the book and make sure the book does not go into circulation. So for me, it is about the purpose for which you are writing. For whom are you writing? What is the purpose? How I define myself as an African writer is one who is invested in the struggles of Africa. The idea, I want to disagree with you a bit, Roland, that a Zambian is different from a Ugandan is false. All of us come from the same history of colonialism. All of us are faced by dictatorships. So all of us are faced by corruption. That means our health facilities everywhere are going to be the same. Look, South Africa, which you think is a more developed country, there is gun violence on the street every day, every day. There are cameras everywhere, but gun violence is uncontrollable. It's like here in Uganda where, politicians are killed night and day, nobody gets to know who killed them. So for me, I think the challenges are the same. The problems we share are the same. I visited Nigeria. I'm sorry for my Nigerian friends here. I was in Lagos and I saw how reckless the drivers can be. And I was like, Kampala drivers are better. All the cars were scratched that I saw on the road. And this is an exaggeration, but yes, then you realize you share because there is a lot of corruption. The systems that should work are not working. So you as a writer, what every day, what is that one thing you wake up to want to tell that you feel like unless you settle, you will not tell? Yeah, for me, I've promised myself that at the end of my career, academic career, I think I'll write a book on love because there's no, I can write a book on love in the academy. For what? It won't give me a promotion, it won't take me anywhere. But I said, and I feel it every day. Sometimes I receive acts of love and I'm like, oh God, this lady needs to be memorized in a particular book. Yeah. Your sister does something and you feel like now this sister of mine at this moment just mothered me. So completely, and also to say for me, it's about questioning ourselves again and again. What makes us African is the same history of colonialism, history of bad leadership, and no system functions. So we should be annoyed, angered. The things that happen to us partly are because of the political systems within which we thrive. And we need to respond to them, not with political missives, but with nuanced texts. You can write about a village meeting, and at the end of the day, whoever reads it sees a political narrative. Yeah. So you don't need to write as if you're writing a manifesto. Yeah. No, you don't write a manifesto, communist manifesto. No, you write something that at the end, the target is even beyond who you're attacking here. That's simple as that. So as an African, really, we share a lot of history. That's why the Ugandan, when they pick Chimamanda's text, they feel at home with it. That's why writers like Harriet and Nena are able to submit their poetry, and they win awards in Nigeria, you know, because the Nigerian relates with this poem, with the words, with the images in this poem, the violence, everything, they relate with it. Yes, so that's why we are interacting with each other. That's why Makumbi writes, and someone in another country, African country, feels they are writing from their soul. They are writing their story. So we share a lot. Let me stop there. Someone said that a storyteller is limited to a single medium. No, I don't think really. Yeah, we know many storytellers to have started as poets, for example, then ended up as playwrights. Some start as playwrights, then end up as novelists. So the genre or medium should not limit the poet, because even that's what I was saying, the context should give you the fundamentals, because it's the context that some moments you can only tell about them through song. Some moments you can only tell about them through writing, journaling, not even writing the story. That's just a journal. Some moments can be told by writing poems. Something happens to you, you don't want to let it in, yet you don't want also to let it out. You'll be like, this poem shall be able to keep this safe. And it's readers later that shall be able to, there's something more to this poem that we don't understand. Yeah, so they are not limited. They shouldn't be, but often we get limited because of our circumstances. You don't have the technology. Maybe now with many technologies that can help, it is possible to juggle them. But yeah, you start as a playwright, then you end up as a novelist, you end up as an essayist. You can even end up, I've seen now many old writers or storytellers of Africa have like YouTube pages where they go just there and are interviewed and so on and so forth. So it means they no longer have the power to write, but they can speak, they can tell stories. Yeah, I see, for example, Wole Soyinka, he still writes, he's always in fights with Nigerian youth, but at least he's more now into talking. And in fact, he has now recently also closed that somehow. So I think, yeah, they're not limited. There is this American social commentator and journalist also, Ta-Nehisi Coates. I don't know if you know him, Moses. Maybe he's muted, but there's a journalist called Ta-Nehisi Coates. Ta-Nehisi Coates has made a name through telling stories of slaves, you know, and he was a newspaper, I think, editor first, like chief editor. So he could see stories that are submitted because, you know, as a newspaper editor, you receive stories, then you select which ones get published. And he could see stories and follow some up, and he has written books. His recent book, I think, is called The Message. And this one is, he too had traveled to Israel, and he saw the violence. He saw the level of torture, of destituteness, and felt, no, he needed to write something. So he writes a book now on the Palestinian cause. So I would encourage you to write a memoir on Ugandan the entertainment industry, because indeed the Ugandan entertainment industry does not have many texts. And I think yours would be very insightful, especially even in recent times when we are again seeing the droves of violence within musicians, for example. And everyone says this is historical. It started with particular musicians, then it moved to another generation of Bobby Wine, Chameleon, Baby Cool, and they fought and fought. Now we see what is his name? Alien Skin and is it Palazzo and so on and so forth. So these are things that we have in the mind that are not written, yet people who have been close can put something down for us to read, to remember, to refer to. The question you would want to ask yourself especially is, for what am I writing this? Me too, I would encourage you to write one. But the question would be, for what am I writing this memoir for? So one of the answers would be to highlight this violence, okay, in the music industry, or sexual predation in the music industry, and so on and so forth. And the question becomes, for what purpose? Will it stop it? What is the purpose for which yours is an intervention? What are you intervening in exactly? I think when you answer that question, you can easily and you can even know how to tell the story. You can know what to not include and what to include, and still make the story relevant. So yeah, about that, I encourage you, because yeah, you've done journalism, no, but and because you have actually that journalistic background, and not just the background, but the name, they would say, who has written the book? That is, you see how everyone is always saying, we can't wait to read Semuju Nganda's text if he ever writes one, because he is very knowledgeable. He's a moving encyclopedia of Uganda's post-1986 politics. He knows it all by off head. And so everyone is waiting for the book. He was not a politician, and he was just a journalist, but he was in the know. He was in the know. If Andrew Mwenda had not, become pro the regime, he would be one person who writes a book and all of us want to read it. But I can tell you, even now, even if he wrote a book, we would want to read it because he has the information. So you too, you have that legitimacy, and you should put it to use. Yeah.
I don't know the other questions in the chat, but I will bring forth another one in response to your response to mine. So, you mentioned, of course, the conflicts that came to mind regarding receiving a gift, some appreciation for your post about the Palestine and Israeli situation, and I understand that. So I guess for people here who are having similar challenges and trying to make the balance between writing because of how strongly they feel about certain things versus making a living off this writing, how best do you answer that question for yourself? Capitalism over the message, how do you strike the balance? Because inevitably, as per the theme of our training, we want this to be something that it can easily be you can make a living from this and live off this talent, of this gift of yours. But then those questions, those ethical questions, how do you go about thinking about them?
I think this is really a hard question to answer, partly because really I've been a privileged writer, I should say. Privileged in the sense that whenever I've had to write, there's been like, they're soliciting for, writing pieces and so on. So you find that you are facilitated to write. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's why you see, for example, now I can say I'm so much into academic writing in a way that me too, I feel, uncomfortable with it. I feel something to me, you have stories to write, you need to write them. This year I said, you have to write. So I started a website, opened everything, and I said I will complete everything later. And then, I've not touched it at all. Like launching the website, and haven't. You can imagine. So partly because you are not you're not not that you're not facilitated, because you can continue to feel it, but with time it will die if you don't you don't if you not pick it up quickly. It can die completely. So I really don't know what to say. What is his name? There's a time Ngugi writes about Nagenda, John Nagenda, and says he was the best writer of their time. Like Ngugi admired Nagenda, John Nagenda. Of course, John Nagenda today in Uganda is celebrated, no doubt. But Ngugi is globally celebrated. Even Nagenda is celebrated, but not in the reach that Ngugi is celebrated. Partly because John Nagenda, you go into government, you do this, you do this. So you find that the motivation, and he kept on writing in the papers. And whenever he wrote, we wanted to read. But Ngugi says he had the potential to do more than that, in a way, to write texts that would change the way we think about writing, and so on and so forth. So it can easily die. So really, I would be very unfair if I said you have to write, because I understand the world we live in. I understand the moment we live in. But like Tejuko says, if you can find you have sleepless nights, there is something you want to write and you're having sleepless nights over it. That's the best way to negotiate. I know that the things I've wanted to write, those articles I write in newspapers, truthfully, I sit in a day. I just come, let's say, out of class, and I feel angry about something, or I just saw something on Twitter, and I'm like, I need to write something. And before I submit to monitor, I don't sleep. That is it. Like, I just write. It can, your fiancé will call you and be like, can we talk later, please? What is because you're doing something, like you don't want to be interrupted. So there are those things that, for me, that's how I negotiated. That's how I keep writing. It's like a spirit. You're possessed. You're possessed. It just gets you and puts you down, and you want to write this thing and send it. That's how I do many of my writings, actually. Yeah. So I've been a privileged writer, I think, like I said, and I can't really answer that question so well of how do we negotiate this. I think it's to strike a balance, to know that this story, if you don't tell it, someone will tell it. In life, in real life, there are things I've wanted to do, and I choose not to do it. Many things, you want to do this and you don't do it. Then someone else does it, and you feel like, actually, I wanted to do this thing. Come, I didn't do it. Like, you feel so bad. There are stories you will not tell, and people tell them, and you feel bad that you did not tell them. I know that moment is coming. So truly, I think the best way is to keep on trying. Don't look at writing as the only source of income at the moment. That's what I can say. Because if you do that, you're going to, especially if you're a young writer, you're going to be frustrated. The publishing industry is very ruthless. It wants writers who have already won particular awards and so on and so forth. They want people who have a name, who can market their publishing houses. And so if you're starting, it becomes difficult, really. Yeah, but just keep doing it. Keep doing it. We are in the same van there. We are in the same boat there. Myself, I'm asking, how can I, because I have passion for these things, how can I do them? Comes the question. Wow. We're going to, I think this link will close soon, but one thing I know is I want to write something that I also can read, that I enjoy. I think that, because I write for myself sometimes, like I really want to write something I want to read. And so because of that, I think that's the only thing I can say, that everything I write about everything. I can write about politics, music, Christianity, everything. And I observe a lot, of course, but I want to write something I want to read also, especially that. And so because of that, I am royal to my emotions, to my feelings, to be like, I don't want to be disappointed in what I read, of me. So because of that, I I do my best. Okay, great. So as you spoke, you reminded me of something. Let me share my screen again. Please give people access, Roland, just in case. I don't know, can they see it? Okay, so there's this lady called Muchala Wandela. So when he was speaking and asking, how do I tell this story? I remember this lady, Muchala Wandela. So she started by saying, how would you guys like it if I wrote short narrations about some of the most mind-blowing court cases from Uganda? I have a lot of tea off head, and guys committed some serious and funny crimes. It will be so fun. 100 likes and I begin tomorrow. Motivate me, I serve you tea. It was funny, but she started on Jan 2nd this year. I can assure you she has had a following she never had. That post has reached 7.4 million views, you can see. And so every other day, I don't know how but that was the first story. It's a very popular story of Katoka Jubi who killed a young child. The second story, and she's now at story, I think, like 30. And she has been like adding, and it is she knows how to get videos from YouTube, from clips from YouTube pages of TVs and so on, newspaper, and do like those stories. And the stories are all like interesting, and they've like I feel like she has succeeded really in what her she intended. Every story. Now look, story 24, a story you all know, Susan Magara. Susan Magara was a sister to my teacher. 2K, like, look at the what are they called, bookmarks, and especially bookmarks show you how many people are really interested in the story, like who want to return back to this story and read it. So if you see how much she has, if she was not earning, she's been able, I think, to earn with these stories, because with X, a few likes and retweets and so on, you start getting money. So look at what she has managed to do in just 2 months. She has managed to tell the story well. So you could do that, give us pieces, because recently I heard she's in negotiation with, is it NBS, something like that, to make documentaries of now these stories. Look at how now the story has gone, beyond what she had perhaps initially imagined, So I think, yeah, look at just a single story. It's few Ugandans who have such following, likes, retweets, and bookmarks like she is now recently. So you could do that really, or if you get a good publisher, especially, or a culture fund. Now Roland could could link you up to culture funders who can fund a book, or like the Goethe Institute, the German Culture Institute, to fund like a publication of a small book, I think it would work. Yeah. Anything can do, as long as for you, you feel it's the best way you can tell this story. Because I believe this lady, if we were to tell her to write a book, she would not. She would fail maybe. But this way she knows, because she likes telling stories in bits. She does not have this depth of, this, like she brings fun in that. Court cases can be very boring to read, but she knows how to read them and make the most important summaries of these stories. And she has been able to really attract attention to, herself. This was the case of Akbar Godi, cases that we know in Uganda. All of us who are Ugandans know most of these cases. And she's just making now money out of them, just out of reading court cases, summarizing them for people with evidence of newspaper not articles. She just puts photos she did not take and videos that are also captured by television. So the only thing she invests here is reading and summarizing, and she's earning, So you can see, what do you want to do with your story? Do you want it to just go out? Do you want to earn out of it? And what are the best platforms you can use? Yeah. She didn't have this following just at the beginning of the year, but look at her following now, 18,000 followers. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I can say.
All right, thank you, Jacob. Guys, I think that's our time. What we shall do now is Jacob is going to give us an exercise, and during the course of this week until the next webinar, please take time and actually do this exercise. Every week we shall have one of these. The goal is not to.
So my exercise is not an exercise, but we can actually do what? Think through it, because this was Tejuko's letter to a young writer. Most of us here are very young, medium age, and so on writers. So I was thinking, what if we did something crazy? Writing letters to yourself, writing a letter to yourself. Writing a letter to yourself as a writer. How would that letter read? For me, that is what I would want to read. If you were to write a letter to, just even if it's a 2-page letter to yourself, 3-page, okay, not 2 pages, just a small, 3-page, 3 to 5-page letter to yourself as a writer, not as an individual, as a human being, no, as a storyteller. For me, I know if I were to write such a letter, I would tell myself of how I'm disappointed in myself, how I demand an apology from myself. So what would a letter to yourself as a storyteller look like? 3 to 5 page.
All right, thank you, Jacob. So guys, that is your exercise. That is your homework for the week. From our side, we would prefer if you posted your letter to yourself on Muwado. You create an account and post it there, because we believe in putting your journey out there in the public, not waiting for having the perfect posts before you finally post. So this journey is one for yourself to become a proficient writer and a regular writer, but also to introduce yourself to your audience. I know some of you have already been doing this, so that's okay. But as you go through this process and go through all these different trainings and learn these different things about yourself as a writer, we think it would be nice if you shared this journey and through the exercises that will be given. So go home, write the letter. If you don't know how to post on Muwado, please send us an email. At least I'm sure you've heard from us since you registered, and we shall guide you through it. And then let's have it up. There is a group. We have a group on Muwado again, where we shall be sharing with each other and leaving comments for each other, leaving feedback for each other. The goal of this is to help ourselves, all of us, use the community to help ourselves and grow. So post on Muwado, drop the link in the group. Jacob will respond, and the other
Roland.
people who are participating will also respond.
Roland,
Yes, Jacob.
can I ask that since it's a 40-page, and as they saw, it's big letters, since it's a 40-page, that page you call, they first read the whole booklet. It's just 40 pages, really. It's readable even in a night, in one sitting. It's readable. We just were able to read 9 pages, and it's just 40 pages. So it's readable. First read that so that you are kind to yourself sometimes. You're like, maybe I didn't know this. Yeah, I want a letter that is not just paranoid of self, but a letter that is from that place of, okay, maybe I didn't know this. Yeah, maybe I was writing, but the wrong, like I want a letter that is kind to self, not a letter that is just going to destroy self. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jacob. So guys, read the book. I'll also share it by email so that you have a copy there. And then if you're feeling very inspired, then in addition to the letter to yourself, try give writing a review for the book a go. It would be nice to see what you have learned. So yeah, that's the option exercise. The other one, it would be nice if all of you manage to write that letter to yourself and upload it. All right. We shall allow Jacob to go now. Thank you, Jacob, very much. This has
Welcome.
very nice. He left his email in the chat box in case anybody wants to reach out to him directly. And yeah, thank you, Jacob.
Welcome, my brother.